팬데믹 기간 렌트 거주민들을 위한 연방, 주, 시정부의 퇴거 유예 조치가 수많은 주민들의 고통을 덜어주었지만 임대인 입장에서는 달갑지만은 않았습니다. 더군다나 LA시 임대인들의 경우 퇴거 유예 및 임대료 인상 금지 법안이 시정부의 코로나19 팬데믹 종료 시점부터 1년 후까지로 연장되어 있기 때문에 그 끝이 보이지 않는 상황입니다. 이에 LA시 임대인들은 27일 오전 LA시청 남쪽 잔디 광장에 모여 시정부의 퇴거 유예 종료를 촉구하는 집회를 가졌습니다. 집회를 주최한 존 리 LA 12지구 시의원은 이날 기자회견에서 지난 2년의 시간 동안 모든 방역 상황을 준수해온 선량한 소규모 임대인들이 렌트비를 제때 받지 못해 경제적 어려움의 사각지대에 놓였다며 시정부의 즉각적인 모라토리움 종료를 종용했습니다. 자리에 모인 임대인연합은 퇴거 유예 조치 유지가 집주인들을 향한 또 다른 차별이라며 존 리 시의원의 발언을 적극 지지했습니다.
돈 못 받았는 걸 했는데 확인 전화를 그 테넌트한테 시에서 전화를 하니까 이분들이 전화를 안 받는 거예요. 왜냐면 도망을 쳤으니까. 이제 나는 돈을 못 받는 거예요. 이분이 이제 내가 돈을 안 주고 살았다 이렇게 했으면 되는데 협회에서 얘기하는데 아마 좀 많다고 그래요. 한인회에서도 이런 분이 많다고 그랬습니다.
이렇듯 한인 임대인들의 피해도 적지 않은 가운데 존 리 시의원은 퇴거 유예 종료 날짜를 설정하자는 동의안을 시의회에 제출한 상황으로 LA 주택국의 종료 날짜 선정 보고서를 현재 기다리고 있다고 전했습니다.
오셨습니까?
It used to be a great town. This thing is jacked. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for all of you for being here today to join me. You know, 2 years ago at the onset of the pandemic, the world changed. And, you know, governments everywhere, including Los Angeles, were tasked with finding solutions to very real problems that people were facing. To try and get a handle on the myriad of problems of COVID-19, which forced us to face our city-implemented, to try and get a handle on the myriad of problems we were forced to face, our city implemented an eviction moratorium in an effort to help people stay in their homes without needing to pay rent immediately and without the fear that they would be evicted for non-payment. This was critical during a time where so many people were out of work and when we were virtually unable to even step outside of our homes. Now here we are, almost a year after the most stringent COVID-19 restrictions have been lifted. We have eased our rules on masking, on social distancing, and no matter where you look, there are a significant number of people who have returned to work. Yet our city remains one of the few places that continues to have a moratorium in place. The moratorium has caused severe hardship for many small mom-and-pop landlords, of whom have put their entire life savings into purchasing small properties and are now being left behind by what once was a well-intended decision. Month after month, we take up the same question and ask whether it's time to bring an end to the eviction moratorium. But no matter how much progress we seem to make on lowering the number of COVID cases or how many people rejoin the workforce, we continue to do the same thing over and over every single month and choose to keep in place the eviction moratorium in place while ignoring the pleas of those who are falling through the cracks of this policy. When people imagine who the owners of rental properties are, people always seem to picture large real estate companies, but the reality is that there are so many individuals and families who have saved their entire lives for the opportunity to buy a property, a milestone that is widely considered a major part of the American dream. And at this critical time in the city, we have placed a priority on expanding housing opportunities for Angelenos. Small rental property owners provide safe, affordable, and critical housing units that we need to help preserve. Losing these property owners will only worsen Los Angeles' severe housing crisis. Additionally, inflation and rising costs have affected all of us, And as individuals, we can adjust our spending accordingly to curb the impact. But property owners have no choice or reprieve on fulfilling their responsibilities to pay taxes or maintain their properties, but also face frozen rents during this time. The longer we extend this moratorium, the closer we get towards causing them to lose their dreams altogether. I have been urging my colleagues to take action for months now. So today we're here to say that enough is enough. We are demanding that the Housing Department issue the report on the eviction moratorium that includes an official end date. And by taking this small, simple step, we can provide at least a little reprieve to these small property owners who are unfairly shouldering the worst aspects of this policy. We all want to have a conversation about how we address tenant rights, equity, and homelessness. But by piling it all into this moratorium, which we implemented under the idea that it was temporary, is foolish and bad governance. So today I would like to invite some of the people who this eviction moratorium continues to deeply affect and to share their personal stories with you and show real life impact that this moratorium is having on their lives of everyday people, who because of this short-sightedness have been cut off from their main source of income, or are on the verge of losing their mortgage, or simply facing unique circumstances that can't be resolved by any solution that doesn't include ending the moratorium. To begin, I'd like to invite a fierce advocate for small rental property owners, Diane Robertson.
Good morning. First, I want to thank and applaud Council Member Lee for his leadership, for his support, and for organizing us today to share the challenges that small mom and pop landlords have been facing for over 3 years now. Thank you. My name is Diane Robertson, D-I-A-N-E-R-O-B-E-R-T-S-O-N. I am one of the founding members of the Coalition of Small Rental Property Owners. We are a grassroots alliance of mom and pop property owners that formed shortly after the eviction moratorium went into effect March 2020, over 3 years ago now. Contrary to the false narrative, landlords are not seeking to kick families out of their homes and to add to the homelessness crisis. What we want to do is evict bad housing policies.
Evict bad housing policies.
Evict bad housing policies. Evict bad housing policies.
Save property.
What we are seeking is to work with lawmakers toward equitable solutions for us and our tenants. I do not come from a family of financial means. I grew up in a single-parent household, and we experienced periods of being on public assistance throughout the years. My mother was and continues to rent an apartment. I worked and saved for years to save up the money I needed for a down payment on a duplex in South Los Angeles and become the first homeowner in my immediate family. That purchase represented an investment in my and my mother's future financial security. That is part of the American dream, is it not?
Yes.
And yet, for so many who have followed that path, we are now being penalized. It has been 3 years since rental property owners have been unable to collect rent in exchange for the housing we provide. In those years, the expense to maintain these properties have increased significantly. We continue to be told the eviction moratorium cannot be lifted because we are still in a state of emergency. However, if that is in fact the case, then I ask the Los Angeles City Council to tell us why is it that the small rental property industry is the only one prevented from continuing to operate without government interference.
Yes.
I cannot think of any other industry that is not operating their businesses as usual. We implore our Los Angeles City Council to stop making rental property owners the scapegoat, to stop forcing us to bear the burden of a global pandemic, now 3 years and counting, to stop making us responsible for the city's homelessness crisis. The policies and legislation over the past 3 years have put at risk the small rental property industry, the very industry that has historically been the provider of the much needed affordable housing in our city. We implore you to save affordable housing and protect mom and pop landlords.
Protect mom and pops.
Tenant protections should not result in policies and legislation that force small rental property owners into foreclosure, bankruptcy, and financial devastation. That is not a solution to the housing crisis this city is facing. Thank you.
Now I'd like to introduce small rental property owner Liz Reckart. Liz?
Thank you, Councilmember Lee.
My husband and I are foster parents, currently caring for a wonderful 21-month-old girl. We use most of our life savings to purchase half of a duplex to provide a stable home for our growing foster family. And by law, we have the right to do just that. But because the eviction moratorium has dragged on for more than 2 years, we have not been able to move into our own home. Instead, our home has been stolen from us, so that 3 guys in their 30s who have not claimed a COVID hardship
At all.
can live their best life in LA. Our home has been stolen from us so that tenants, one of whom owns a DeLorean, can go to Burning Man and rent yachts for birthday parties and sail up in hot air balloons. Our home has been stolen from us, not by our tenants, but by the overly broad policies created under Mayor Garcetti and upheld by the majority of our city.
That's it.
Their policies fail to focus on those who actually need help, but instead let people take advantage of families like ours. And yet, our home is not the only thing that has been stolen from us. Our savings have been stolen from us as we pay both rent to care for our child and a mortgage. Our hard work has been stolen from us as our rental income does not even cover half of our homeowner costs and we have no recourse to raise rent. Our time has been stolen from us as we spent countless hours appealing to the city council only to be ignored or pushed aside. Our health, my health, has been stolen from us. As sleeping on the couch to give our foster daughter our only bedroom left me with a herniated disc and on bed rest over Christmas. All we want to do is live in our own home, but instead it's being stolen from us. The city should be helping those in need, but because they can't be bothered to fix their broken policies, they're letting people take advantage of us. It's time for the city to stop stealing from families, and it's time to end the eviction moratorium for mom and pop landlords.
Save
Thank you, Liz. And now I'd like to invite from the Apartment Owners Association, Jill Lewis. Jill?
Hello and good morning. Thank you for
having me. I truly believe, what do you call it when you discriminate against one group of people? It's not on gender, it's not on race, but it is discrimination against one particular group of people. And in this case, it is financial, because we are perceived as having 2 cents to rub together. And if that's what you're trying to do, then be honest about it. And the city is not being honest. I also believe that the leaders, the so-called leaders, are fomenting division. It's like you're creating this us against them scenario. It's, you know, instead of encouraging people to work together to find solutions. If anybody's old enough to remember, excuse me, the old Saturday night routine, I think it was Eddie Murphy, kill the landlord, kill the landlord. Remember that one? That's what's going on. That's what you're encouraging by these policies. And you are old enough,
Not corporations.
for decades, you are old enough, you know human nature, you should have some experience. You've been a teenager, or you know one. You know that people take advantage of things. And that is exactly what's going on. I have one tiny house. It's in Laurel Canyon, so it is the slums of the Hollywood Hills. But even in the slums of the Hollywood Hills, I find it very hard to believe that my renter can't give me $100 a month. $200? He is claiming absolutely that he can't do anything. It's not right. It's not believable. It's not honest in any way. Thank you for your time.
Elder abuse.
Totally. Thank you.
Thank you, Jill. I don't know, is Lisa and Bill Gillis? Are they? All right, I'd like to now invite Audrey Lopez-King.
I'm a small business owner with a mixed-use property on Crystal Boulevard. I have been in business for nearly 2 decades. In that time, I have faced down a great many threats. Today, the greatest threat to my business are outdated policies. In June 2021, I applied for a justifiable rent increase. It's a program engineered by the City of LA's Rent Stabilization Division. Despite receiving my certified report and cashing the check, the request has been ignored for well over a year. The impact of those uncollected monies are projected 80% of my annual revenue and represent well over a 300% net loss. Amid a sea of possible generational wealth, I struggle daily to make ends meet. These policies have made it much more difficult to secure the kinds of loans that improve a business and help me support my family. My mom and pop has been plagued by non-paying tenants who abuse a system that's already weighted in their favor. COVID-19 related cost increases and fees levied by the city and state continue to rise, but my income is now 1/4 of what it would be without these kinds of regulations. Policymakers focus on tenant voting numbers and corporate interests, and they ignore the social contributions and rights of mom and pop. We are forced to bear the cost of tenant-caused issues and the city's homelessness crisis. Largely due to these kinds of policies, there's a multinational billion-dollar corporation called American Towers, and it has been squatting on my property and refusing to pay rent or compensate me for over a decade. The rent freeze, coupled with the effect of rent control and other burdensome measures, embolden bullying behavior in these kinds of unscrupulous organizations. The city and companies like American Tower rake in the dough And while we struggle to generate enough revenue to hold them accountable, due to the impact of COVID-19 and the resulting economic chaos, expenses from the gas pump to the kitchen table have all increased. Why can't I raise my rent? We struggle daily with rent control and unjustified rent abatements and city fees for services that we are not even receiving. The city of LA has given paltry aid to the hands that feed and sustain its core economy. This needs to stop.
That's right.
Thank you so much. I'd like to now introduce AJ and Peter, our small property owners.
Thank you, Councilman Lee, and everyone here. So many emotions going through. Sorry.
Take your time.
Yeah.
I'm an immigrant. I came here 25 years ago. I have a son, a daughter. We bought our first house.
Speak the truth.
There are things that I want to talk, but one thing I want to talk about is my kids' future. I'm here because of that. I'm not able to save my money for them. But yet, I have to pay for somebody else's, the rent, and I have not received rent for 3 years. I don't know when I'll get that. I have one property. One. Why me? Where is the justice for me? Is my family not important? I paid taxes for 25 years. And I have survived through this. If I can work hard, my wife can work hard, we work 12 to 14 hours just to keep up somebody else's lifestyle. We see them taking vacations. We are not taking vacation in 2 years. 2 years. And here I am. Will the city ever, pay for my kids' education? What will happen when they go to college? Will it come? What will happen to my rent? I've been taught, educated about the power of saving and compounding. All that 3 years that I've lost and the money that I'm going to lose in the next few years is gone. Who's going to pay for that? These are, many of them have said, these are fine times. Yes, the city has to do other things for homelessness, but even I have a right. It's my house, my property. I pay taxes.
We matter!
We'll soon all be homeless.
Yeah.
We are not corporations, we are mom and pops.
So you're putting undue stress on me, my wife, my kids. Our relationship has changed because I rented the property thinking that this will come handy one day. But we have fights every day about this. It has put not only a financial burden on us, but health issues because of the stress. Who's going to pay for that? Is the city going to pay? They can't even keep things properly. What the hell are they talking about? This thing. I mean, there are so many other issues, but I know I have only 2 minutes. I implore the city to end the moratorium and get us our money and the tenants out. And it is not sustainable for me to, have 2 mortgages, 2 insurances, 2 HOAs, and repairs for 2 houses. There is no way that I can do it, and that's something that I want to do. And we are not villains here. You can see that the way it is predicted. We are projected as the landlords are villains, and we are rich, and it's not that. We don't have that kind of money. So I implore the city to end the moratorium. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilman Lee. Hi, my name is Peter, and I am a first-generation immigrant trying to recoup our family home. We own one single-family home for 20 years. Shortly after I lost my wife 4 years ago, we had a tenant of ours illegally sublet an unpermitted space within our home without our permission. That tenant has since vacated, but she left behind an illegal subletter who has now become a squatter within our home. During stay-at-home orders, we took the guidance of Mayor Garcetti to work with our fellow Angelenos, and we gave this subletter temporary shelter to get through COVID. Well, it turns out our subletter is actually a convicted felon with a hidden agenda, and his temporary stay has been anything but temporary. Emboldened by the protections of the LA City eviction moratorium, he has bullied his way to 30+ months and counting of free rent and free utilities, and he has tried to extort our family additionally out of tens of thousands of dollars. He has holed up in an unpermitted part of our home, and because of this detail, I am ineligible for rental relief. Not only that, but the city is forcing me to sustain this illegal tenancy against my wishes. Despite having a government order that requires me to discontinue use of this space, the city will not allow me to remove this squatter. And instead, they have started to fine me for not being compliant with this same government order. This nightmare scenario is only possible because of the LA City eviction moratorium that remains in place today. Mayor Garcetti, City of LA, I answered your call to work with our fellow Angelenos, and look at what it has gotten me. Nothing but penalties and fees from the city, extortion from a bad actor squatter, and being forced to sustain an illegal tenancy without right to due process or compensation. I worked with you, Mayor Garcetti. When will you, the city, or LAHD work with me? It's time to end the LA City eviction moratorium.
Finally, I'd like to invite Cheryl Turner as our last speaker of the day.
Thank you, Councilmember Lee, for your leadership in City Council. You and Joe Buscayeno have been heroes to us. I wish the other council members would do the same. My name is Cheryl Turner, and I am president of the Board of Directors of the Apartment Association of Greater Los Angeles. We represent small property owners primarily, consisting of people like nurses, teachers, janitors, gardeners, plumbers who've saved up their life savings in order to invest in rental housing and provide housing to the community. You know, many of us who came here voluntarily, or our ancestors who came here voluntarily, looked at America as an opportunity to develop wealth and to change our lives and to provide for our families. But that concept is being wrecked here by our city council and other city councils throughout the state who have imposed moratoriums. And when I say moratoriums, I'm not talking about evictions, I'm talking about rent moratoriums. The ability to receive and accept rent. That's all we're looking for. Tenants are our customers. We want to keep them happy, healthy, in a safe environment, but we expect to be paid. No other industry during the pandemic has had to provide free services. I mean, after all, you can't walk into your neighborhood grocery store and say because food is a necessity, now I'm going to walk out without paying. If you got caught, you'd be arrested, convicted, and put in jail. Right? Yep. And if you worked for someone providing services where you expected to be paid and you didn't be paid, you'd have every right to hire an attorney, claim that you had suffered wage theft,
right?
Yeah.
And that you were a victim of slavery. And no one would criticize you for that.
I know.
But we are being criticized for asserting our rights to collect our rent, which is payment for our services. We need to take a look at the future of housing, like we're starting to look at global warming and the impact on our planet. What are we doing with our policies today? Are we doing things that will encourage the building and investment of housing, which we sorely need? No. Are we doing things to discourage the building of housing?
Yes, discouraging us.
We are on the verge of losing our affordable housing.
Affordable housing.
All these small owners are the ones that you are able to come to if you have a problem. You have a job loss, you're temporarily sick or ill and you can't work, we're the ones that will work with you. Collect a little here, make it up next month. Wall Street won't do that.
Never.
And you're sending us all into the possibility of foreclosure, bankruptcy, or selling through fire sales. Those properties will end up owned by the corporations who will hear none of your concerns, who will have no care or concern for you, and will quickly throw you out. And look at also the loss of income to our vendors. You know, through our efforts and work, we pay plumbers, electricians, gardeners every day who provide for their families. Because of the loss of our rental income, they are losing as well, which impacts our society. Now, we are also have at stake the loss of potential billions of taxpayer dollars, which is going to be used to pay back landlords, because the law does require compensation when property is taken by the government, and the government has taken our properties. So we urge the City Council and the Mayor's office to end the emergency declaration. There is no longer an emergency. We wear masks, some wear masks, we wash hands, we have vaccines, it's open. You can go to the Super Bowl, you can go, your kids are going back to school, everything is open, the emergency is over. Let's stop this now, right? Let the government pay the rent, past due rent that is owed if the tenants cannot afford to pay, and let's move forward. It is time to pay the rental income that we are legally entitled to, and we urge you to do so. Thank you very much.
Thank you all for being here today for this very important discussion. I mean, the people who are standing behind me, on the side of me, these aren't big companies, these aren't big conglomerates, these are mom and pop. Most of the stories you heard are people who own one unit. This is their livelihood, and so we're asking today for just to set a date certain that they can look forward to and they can plan for in the future. This eviction moratorium has got to end. I was happy to take any questions.
Mr. Lee, hi. Are you going to be introducing anything today in council with regard to this?
Well, we introduced a motion and we're waiting back for that report from the housing department. And exactly what we're asking for is for that report to include that end date with that report back to council. It's expected any day now. I'm hopeful that it stays on that current trajectory. I don't want this to be another delay for another 30 days. It's supposed to come back within the next couple of weeks, and we're hoping that it has all the information, especially the end date on when we can end this eviction moratorium and these people can move forward with their
Excuse
lives.
me, is the courts doing anything? The court system?
Any other questions?
Yes.
Yes.
I understand that study did not include landlords. That study was for tenants and for tenant rights group. So thank you. This is for us. This is all we get, and bless your heart. But how can you get a fair, non-prejudice report without including the landlords? My situation is very personal. I want to owner-occupy my home because I have a severe lung disease. I have to live in my guest house at the top of my property. It's 84 feet up and in my path, including stairs. Okay, I am 80, oh no, excuse me, I was 81 2 weeks ago. Yay! F it, I'm standing. I'm standing, and my tenants say to me, they pay the rent. I'm lucky, you guys, I'm a lucky one. They will pay the rent, but they say, we will not leave until the moratorium is lifted. I asked them in November of 2020, I go, guys, I need my house, I'm sick. I had 2 hospitalizations in 2021. I spent the whole year writing emails to the city, to the housing, to everyone, said, can I get an emergency health waiver? No, you can't. They were thrown into the bucket with the eviction. So they're taking my life away.
Your story is
I have
not
spent
an unusual
years.
one.
It is, because I'm 81 and not everyone is.
We've heard.
81.
We've heard. I'm happy to answer any questions from these.
Okay, I'm done.
Yes.
So are you talking about the complete lift of the eviction moratorium? That's what you're talking about?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Lee, even after the moratorium, hopefully it's lifted, what, granted for these people, is there some type of compensation you're going to look for these people that are about to lose their homes?
You know, I think these people standing beside me and behind me they're the small property owners. I think it was said best that these are the people that are willing to work with their tenants. They just want the ability to collect their rents. They just want the ability to start moving forward before this becomes, it's now 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, which makes it harder for people to pay back their back rent. And so they want this set now, and I think they would be happy with moving forward and collecting the tax rent of what they were promised under the ordinance that we passed.
We also want tenants to be held accountable.
Yes.
Okay.
End it now.
Just one more question.
Right here, I got a quick question.
Okay, well, thank you so much. We appreciate you being here today.
Thank you, Mr. Lee.
Putting protections in place here at the city to protect people who are most vulnerable to the things that were happening that were caused by this pandemic. But now it's 2 years later. The economy can move forward. People can go to stadiums. Weddings are happening. We're all learning to live with COVID. And we feel that it's time that the city emergency order so that property owners, not large corporations, small mom and pop owners who own just a few units to be able to collect their rent from the tenants. Some have
So you're saying about it's their right to get their rent back.
They're still paying mortgages. The city's still putting taxes on them. We're even raising prices in certain areas. They're having to feel the burden without being able to raise rents, without being able to actually even collect rents. There was no proof that someone needed to show that they were affected by COVID. So unfortunately, there are people that are taking advantage. They would just like the opportunity to have this in place, to start working out a plan with their tenants to move forward and start their businesses and start their income.
So in terms of the motions that you introduced, so is there any specific dates that you're looking forward to lift those eviction moratoriums?
So, we're looking forward to be as soon as possible. I think the city council, is going to be able to debate on when that date is moved forward. But we need the report to come back to actually state the date, so then we can have it on the floor to be able to discuss it.
Thank you.